On Overdrive today, we check out the sporty Tata Altroz Racer, find out how adventurous the Honda Transalp motorcycle is, and check out the long wheelbase version of the BMW 5 Series. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Soini Dutt. Tata Motors has launched a new sporty Altroz in the market. It now comes with newly tuned suspension, engine, as well as steering, with inputs from former Formula One driver Narain Karthikeyan. Here's all the action from the Coast racetrack.
Now say if you want a fun car for about 10 lakhs, your options are limited, which means that this Altroz Racer might be of interest to you, and here's what's new about it. Of course, Tata Motors has toyed with this idea many times before. There have been numerous go-faster Indica prototypes, but these remained just that. That was until the Tiago and Tigor JTPs from 2018. These were genuinely lively and promised a lot, but were probably not the right formula to go about this idea on a mass scale. With the Altroz Racer, Tata Motors has made a serious effort again. It's roped in Narain Karthikeyan, who's helped develop a unique engine, suspension and steering tune for this car. A sportier exhaust note as well as a new hydraulic clutch have been added too. The engine in question is a 1.2-litre turbo petrol from the Nexon, which puts out 120 PS and 170 Nm, pairing with a 6-speed manual. As you can see, I'm driving this Altroz Racer pretty hard out on the coast circuit, and it's quite clear that all the changes that have been made to the chassis have made it a much better driving car than what the regular Altroz was. For example, you find that the chassis itself, that Alpha architecture, we always felt that it had a lot of potential, and a lot of that has been unlocked here. It feels reassuring, it feels confident, and this engine, of course, the outputs are quite substantial for what it is, but you also realize that in the way that it's delivered, the power, the performance, you have that torque right off idle, which powering out of corners like this over here, it really makes for easy, quick driving. And then coming to the steering and the suspension setup, you realize that quite well suited. The steering at these higher speeds feels really quite direct, a lot more than the regular Altroz. There's no slack that the regular Altroz suffered from, at least not apparent here at these higher speeds. It's got a good degree of heft to it, so you can place it where you want on track. Despite running drum brakes at the rear, the Altroz Racer also feels confident under heavy braking. Now realistically, you won't be driving your Altroz Racer on track all that often, and in the real world, all these changes have actually made the Altroz just an all-round better car to drive in more or less most aspects. To start with, this new clutch is a great help. It's much lighter and progressive than before, although the action is still a bit sharp sometimes, so at low speeds you do have to release it a bit carefully, but other than that, it's actually very less effort. So even though we've been driving in traffic for about an hour now, our foot doesn't hurt that much. This 6-speed gearbox, also quite unlike Tata cars, is actually quite nice to use. Now the ride too helps. Yes, it feels a touch firmer still than the regular Altroz. So you do notice that bigger potholes, they sort of kind of thud through, and you do sometimes feel them, but it must be said that it's rounded off well. Now in keeping with all of this, this engine, this 120 PS tune, the specific tune for the Racer, is also very well judged for regular use. Tata Motors has kept things subtle on the outside for the Altroz Racer. You get some bright dual-tone paint options and the stripes that already go with the Altroz's smart looks. But we would have also liked some more aggressive bumpers and vents like the JTP cars had. Now the Altroz has been around a while, but it must be said that the design still remains contemporary with these sort of flowing surfaces, these sort of concave finishes, this floating effect to the center, this arrangement here. It still looks like it's right up to date. And given that this is a slightly older car, you still get physical controls for the AC, which is a good thing to have considering the Nexon and the Harrier have moved to a fully capacitive touch panel here, more or less. Now for the Altroz Racer, you realize that you have this all black theme, and again it works well. Of course, it sort of makes the space feel a bit more cocooned, but it's not that big a deal, especially with these orange highlights. They pop, they give you that pop of brightness. The Racer, along with the broader Tata Altroz range, now also gets more features. You have the new 10.2-inch touchscreen from the Nexon, which continues to be crisp and fluid in its operation, seen here in a new color palette. The wireless Android Auto Apple CarPlay function works seamlessly too. You get the smaller 7-inch driver display setup from the Nexon's mid variants here, which is again easy to use and offers a good deal of information, although the segmented rev counter makes it difficult to know your exact engine speed at times. Other notable features include ventilated seats, an air purifier, wireless charging, connected tech and auto headlamps and wipers. Safety continues to be a strong suit. The Altroz has been rated 5 stars earlier, and you now get 6 airbags as standard, ESP, and a clear 360-degree camera system with blind view monitors. Now that good practicality, of course, you remember those 90-degree doors which were a big talking point for the Altroz. They're still there. And with this Alpha architecture, you still have that flat floor or nearly flat floor. So it just immediately gives you a good sense of space at the back. Now, you'll notice that knee, leg and headroom is also par for the course in this segment. It's not the biggest car here. Maybe something like the Baleno is probably bigger in the back, but it's comfortable. So for me at least, I have enough headroom. Maybe someone taller than me will find it difficult with the way the roof is scooped out. And the bench too is wide enough for 3 people. It's slightly flat in that regard, but it's effective in carrying more people. Starting at Rs 9.49 lakh, the Tata Altroz Racer packs a good deal of engagement for the price. The engine is responsive, and while the gearbox could still be better, the Altroz Racer's big achievement is the fluid and agile chassis that makes it a fun experience on track and on road. Pair this with a comfortable cabin and strong features, and you finally have a fun Tata car that might do enough to bring the enthusiasts in.
Well, Tuin not only got to drive at the course track, but he also got to ride shotgun with Naren Karthikeyan himself. You can check out that video on our YouTube channel. We'll be back shortly to tell you all about the newly launched Honda Transalp motorcycle. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Now, the Honda XL750 Transalp might just look like a scaled-down version of the CRF 1000L, but the spec sheet suggests otherwise. So let's find out what this motorcycle can or cannot do.
Now, when Honda came out with the XL750 Transalp, like many of you, I was really stoked because just look at it. It looks like a baby Africa twin, right? But then again, a closer inspection of the spec sheet revealed that it's not going to be really on par with the CRF 1100L, which is the Africa twin, on sheer capability alone. And that left a big question mark looming above what this motorcycle is actually capable of doing. The XL750 Transalp looks absolutely brilliant. Okay, not so much so in this dark color, but in the white paint scheme with the red and blue streaks and those gold rims, man, it looks drop dead gorgeous in my opinion. It looks proportionate, not too big but not overly imposing either, fitting for a mid-size multi-cylinder ADV bike. Now, although some might find this one to look rather simple, well, the features list that this bike houses says otherwise. Now, the Transalp comes with a 5-inch TFT screen that it shares with the Honda NX500, but this one, well, it has a lot of more information for you to configure and read out on the go. Now, you have 4 themes, you have 4 ride modes, you have settings of engine power, engine braking, traction control, ABS, and there's one ride mode where you can configure all that and personalize it to your riding style and liking. The lovely thing about the Transalp screen is that the display is crisp and all the important information that you want to be shown is laid out clearly. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of buttons for you to fiddle and toy around with on this motorcycle, but then again, the actual layout of the buttons takes some getting used to because some of the switchgear is a bit oddly positioned. That might take a bit of time to get accustomed to. What won't, however, is the actual bike itself, because it's just so easy, comfortable and well balanced. Now, yes, the seat height of the Transalp is tall, but once you're actually on board, it feels like one of those motorcycles where you're seated within rather than on it. And as you can see, the rider triangle very upright and the padding keeps things nice and comfortable. One of the highlights of this motorcycle is how well balanced it feels. Whether you're riding fast, you're riding slow, braking hard, standing, sitting, well, it just allows you to see the obstacle in front, react to it and get past it with a calculated precision. Honda have really mastered the center of gravity with this one. It doesn't feel top heavy when you tip it over, and that on its own allows you to really feel a great connection with this bike at all times, at least when you're riding it. And when you're not riding it, even walking this 208 kg stock bike around isn't a big task. But the best part about this motorcycle, it has to be the 755cc twin-cylinder engine. Now, it's one of the new parallel twin engines from Honda, and it's the same one that powers the latest Hornet 750 elsewhere in the world. So, you definitely know that this one has got some sting. Now, the 755cc liquid-cooled parallel twin that powers the Transalp is a real treat because it makes a good amount of power. That's around a little over 91 PS of max power, 75 Nm of max torque, and being a 270-degree crank, well, it makes most of that power in the mid and top end of the spectrum, but there is a decent amount of grunt low down the power band as well. Acceleration is smooth off the line and the clutch is nice and light, which is great for the city. And once the roads open up a bit and you dive into the mid-range, well, that's when you'll have yourself a big old bag of fun. Power build-up to the mid-range is fairly good, and after that, this motor just wants to spread its wings and take flight. Great fun if you fancy yourself a brisk ride. You can even hear nice clicks each time you work the gearbox, and it gives you this nice crisp feeling overall. The parallel twin engine is just so linear in its delivery. There are no surprising spikes in power, so it isn't a task when you throw the hammer down at any point. When you're riding off-road too, there's more than enough power on tap to light your eyes up with glee. But although you have a good amount of travel at both ends, you have 200 mm at the front wheel and 190 at the rear, well, the suspension can bottom out quite easily if you're making new trails and happen to make a mistake. And remember, that protective bash plate you see on there, that's not standard fit. Now let's just say that I was really happy that it was on there this time around. So, after my short stint with the bike, I found the XL750 Transalp to be a simply brilliant on-road machine, but sadly, not so much so of it, at least in the stock form. It feels like a thorough long-distance tourer that will take you pretty much anywhere you want to go, as long as the terrain isn't overly challenging. Now to sum things up out here with the Honda Transalp. First and foremost, let me reiterate by saying that the Transalp is no baby Africa twin, because this is more of an adventure tourer rather than a full-blown ADV bike. Now, this comes to India as a CBU, much like the NX500, so it isn't going to come cheap. 11 lakhs ex-showroom, and that too just for the bare bones bike. The current setup, what you see out here, which is the wind fairing, the knuckle guards, the engine guards, bash plate, and even that center stand, they're all additional extras. So this whole setup, the additional extra setup, will set you back by around 1.8 lakh rupees, so not really cheap out there. So definitely in terms of sheer value, well, this motorcycle takes a step back. But then again, there are going to be a certain amount of people that are going to really fancy this one for obviously the aesthetic, the comfort levels, that stonk of an engine, the features, and the whole dynamic of it all. Honda fans especially. So if you can afford it, it is a really nice motorcycle.
Well, it's time for us to take our final break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we'll tell you all about the long wheelbase version of the BMW 5 Series that's going to launch pretty soon in the country. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Now, the BMW 5 Series has grown in length for the Indian market, and alongside its first walk-around review, we got a chance to drive it for a very short while. So here's Rohit with his first drive impressions.
It's been 52 years since the birth of the 5 Series lineage, and now we have the 8th generation model finally here in India. Now honestly, it's 2024. It's been a while since the 8th generation 5 Series has been launched in the global market. So why has it taken that long? Well, for that, you need to move to the side and see just how big this car has become, because you see, this is now the 5 Series long wheelbase, or LWB. That makes it the 3rd long wheelbase model from BMW India after the 7 Series and the 3 Series Grand Limousine. Let's first talk about the new design. They have retained the traditional shape for the kidney grills somewhat, but it doesn't look as in your face as it did with the 7 Series or the i7. It's also got this contrasting effect on this particular car, and if you were to look at it closely, it's also got a transparent lining. That's essentially for the lighting. So if you want to bling it up a little bit, you want to illuminate that grille, you can do that. Now the other design bit that I really like, which I don't think is too bling but really sporty, is this little dimple that you get on the bonnet. This is where the BMW roundel sits. It will remind you of the BMW M3. So that, I think, is a very nice design detail. Moving back to the grille, these panels here, they will open or shut depending on when the engine needs cooling or when the car needs better aerodynamic efficiency. You also get this 5 lettering here in the Hofmeister King. Now this is not illuminated like the grille. This one, however, is done up in white, and it's done up in a material that reflects quite nicely when light falls on it. Power tailgate is what you get. It hides beneath it a 500-litre boot space. Now on the side, the doors nice and big, and they almost open 90 degrees, so getting in and out of the car is not going to be a problem at all. In fact, we hear that this will be a longer wheelbase car than even the new E-Class that is coming into India. That will have 3094 millimeters of wheelbase. You heard that first on Overdrive, whereas this one has 3105, so still 11 millimeters longer. Now, in terms of the rear seat, well, nice, comfortable place to be in. Superb legroom, decent amount of headroom. Foot space is quite good too. You do get, however, a center armrest, which gets you a little bit of storage space right here. A wireless charging, which will take plus size phones, and should you press that button right here, it reveals 2 cup holders. You get Bose and Wilkins audio with a nice metal mesh on top of it. The speakers are illuminated as well. On the side of it, you will see these B-pillar mounted AC vents. You get 2 AC vents in the center. This is a proper 4-zone climate control as well. And one additional bit is you can also choose the temperature that you want at your feet separately. The moment you get into the cabin, you realize ingress and egress is just as easy for a low-riding sedan like this. And once you are inside, you also realize that the cabin is almost similar to what you've seen on the 7 Series or the i7 that was standing on the same showroom floors. What I mean by that is you get these nice curved displays for the infotainment and the instrumentation, and you also get these lovely lighting elements in this nice crystal-like look that they've given to the glass. So most of this is interactive as well. What that means is that this will not only show you the ambient color that you've chosen for the lighting, it will also, for example, when you switch on the hazard lights, it will all glow red. Now, in terms of the upholstery, you get this vegan leather or art leather, and BMW says this is the first time that the entire cabin is done up in the vegan leather. Even the trimming on the steering wheel is all vegan leather. So the engine here is a 2-litre 4-cylinder mated to the lovely 8-speed telepathic transmission, and we are already close to 100. Yeah, that was me driving in a very gingerly manner in the efficient driving mode. The engine puts out close to 255 PS, which is quite healthy. It may sound a little humble, but honestly, these are some really healthy figures. The acceleration, as you'd expect, feels brisk, especially the in-gear acceleration feels quite brisk. And that's 150. Superb. So ADAS obviously is something that is a talking point right now for a lot of cars. This being one of the apex luxury cars in its segment, obviously gets all of that, and the overall safety features are right up there that you would expect in this particular price bracket. The ride quality is actually good because the 18-inchers make sure that there is still enough give in the tires to give you a good ride quality. Lane changes at highway speeds shouldn't be a problem at all. Let's hop into the rear seat and see how the rear seat comfort is. Wow, sitting cross-legged in the back of a 5 Series with enough room for someone in the front. Now that's a first, isn't it? And that's exactly what a lot of you probably have been waiting for with the BMW 5 Series, and now you get it with this model. So the overall comfort, really good. Now on the roads that we are driving on, super smooth roads, single lane, not really changing too many lanes, not really subjecting the car to a lot of potholes, etc. But despite that,
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have that overly firm edge that we are known to have with BMW. So again, from a rear seat standpoint, a good thing to have. So the way the suspension has been set up, though comfort is of primary importance here, it still makes sure that you still feel that you are sitting in a BMW while the rough edge has been taken off. So it's not just the wheels, but also the suspension that is tuned to that effect. So the 5 Series will not feel like a compromise at all now if you are going to be driven all the time.
That's it then from us on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our various social media platforms, and you can write to us on YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Until then, drive and ride safe.